But as recently as the 1950s, the valley, then known as the Santa Clara Valley, is celebrated for something quite different: its vast expanses of fruit orchards.
Everywhere you look, for miles and miles, it was just orchards of cherry trees, apricot trees, and prune trees. It was just such a wonderful time there.
Throughout the world, wherever you go, sun-sweet prunes contribute to the enjoyment and health of everyone.
But gradually, the valley is transformed. Its land put to even more profitable use for Cold War industries like missiles and aviation.
Industrial opportunities abound in the Valley of Heart's Delight. Mild climate.
And to build all that hardware, companies bring in thousands of engineers whose enthusiasm for making things proves contagious, especially for their kids, some of whom are about to shake up the world.
A lot of the kids on my block, maybe half of them, had parents that were engineers. My father was an electrical engineer, and he took me to work one day, and I liked what he did and thought, wow, I would like to be an engineer someday. And I discovered a journal in the hall closet, and it had an article telling how ones and zeros made up numbers in computers and how you could add them or subtract them, kind of like the way we do with our numbers. And I said, wow, I practiced on paper, and I said, wow, I learned how to do that. And I told myself inside at a very young age, computers are going to be the most fascinating thing in my life. It's going to be my passion for life.
To build his own computer, Wozniak wants tiny electronic parts called transistors that work as amplifiers or switches, but they're not cheap. He gets some timely help from the Polaris missile, which relies on transistors and is made at the Lockheed factory where his father works.
My father had connections there with the silicon companies, and he got a donation of 400 cosmetic reject transistors.
Parts that enable the precocious 8th grader to get his start.
And if I hadn't been here in Silicon Valley, it just wouldn't have happened. I would have been reading about things in magazines, maybe educating myself, maybe knowing how to do it, but I was really close to the source.
Wozniak's friend from nearby Los Altos, Steve Jobs, also learns electronics from his dad, Paul Jobs, a machinist. Jobs spends his free time with Wozniak, talking about their favorite subject, computers. In 1975, they joined the Homebrew Computer Club, a magnet for electronics obsessives.
The Valley is so rich in engineering, particularly aerospace engineering at that time, that a club can form in which people can make hobbyist computers using technologies that are from the companies all around them.
You know, if you want to know what's going to happen in 5 years, you don't look in the mainstream, you look at the fringe. And the fringe back in 1975 was the Homebrew Computer Club. Everybody that was interested in building computers was at that meeting. And Woz and I always had the coolest stuff there.
At the club, Wozniak shows off a computer he's built. He and Jobs will soon name it the Apple I.
Jobs saw the opportunity with Woz's computer to make this available to large numbers of people at a low cost. And he was saying, let's build these, let's build them in quantity. This would allow people to finally have their own computer.
The automatic digital computer is a remarkable tool. In its many forms and sizes, it can do almost anything.
At the time, the very word computer evokes the cold, remote world of the government, corporations, and the military. But Jobs and Wozniak are children of the counterculture, blossoming in nearby San Francisco. A movement that rebels against the prevailing uses of technology.
I wanted to be a part of this revolution. The word revolution itself struck me so deeply. I just wanted to change things from horrible Vietnam War type days and everything. I wanted to be a part of it. That's one of the reasons I developed my computer. I wanted to help that revolution go forward.
That countercultural promise of transforming the world into a better place is really strong here. And it's intertwined with technology very, very, very tightly.
The radical counterculture notion was putting a computer on everybody's desk, that you could own one at home, that the man wouldn't have one, you would have one. And that was a radical revolutionary thought.
Inspired by these new ways of thinking, in 1976, Jobs and Wozniak start the company whose creations will one day change billions of lives.
So they formed Apple Computer, and they set up shop in Jobs' father's garage, and I went to work there. And we were going to create computers and sell them to people who wanted them.
Soon, a local hobbyist shop orders 50 Apple I's, and they get built in the garage, a Silicon Valley tradition that dates back to the 1930s, when Bill Hewlett and David Packard started tinkering in their own garage in Palo Alto.
I really think the modern world starts right there, in that humble little building.
A building that would soon give rise to one of the most legendary and enduring companies in the history of Silicon Valley.